Joe Miller, I have no idea what I'd do without your dulcet tones talking about the Katowice monuments and the wonderful city that it is, as it does host the Intel Extreme Masters, and you can see there the cup. Names have been etched into it, legends have been born, and, well, one of these teams are one step away from finding themselves in the final to have their name on that trophy. Gentlemen, we've talked back and forth. I mean, both of you, I remember you saying, we've predicted wrong both times, but how can we even predict how these games are going? Because it just seems to be so swingy in the first sort of 5 minutes.
They've both been really lopsided, just one team stomping the other and really not going according to what we'd expect the compositions to do.
I mean, my biggest indicator so far is the power of the mid lane jungle duo picks. I think the team that picks a skirmishing advantage around mid traditionally has been the team that's been winning, and Rengar has gone back from being kind of an afterthought given some of the recent Rengars to seeing the Rengar that kind of justified its first pick, first ban status. So waiting to see exactly what we're going to get here, but I think Rengar is going to be right up there and might even finally be on the ban list for the first time in quite a while.
Absolutely. I do think that these teams don't want to risk it, as it has kind of dictated the first 2 games. So whatever team would be on blue side would most likely maybe think about first picking that and the red side dropping a ban on it.
Well, like you said, we have talked about Rengar. We have shut Rengar down through a lot of this tournament, and finally we've seen 2 games where Rengar has been played efficiently and well, and to a certain game plan. Yes, he was given. You guys are nodding at me. You're saying, well, yeah, he was given a lot of space to do that, but they've taken advantage of it, right?
And at the end of the day, if you get that consistent trend of there being messy early games, of it being the sort of game where an assassin, or at least pseudo-assassin like Rengar can profit, there's lots of skirmishing around brush, Rengar holds the value. So far, that's what's dictated the first 2 games. And who's to say we won't get that a 3rd game in a row?
Exactly, and we have to remember that we were kind of just in the outside of the bubble of the meta, of what's evolving within the game. The players and teams themselves, they know what's going on. They get a better feeling for what champions are really taking off, or more specifically, who is actually carrying or who is really doing all the heavy lifting for one team. And so they could just say, you know what, we don't even think the Rengar was the big issue. We think that we played it wrong.
Sure. I mean, these teams, they've got big booths. Backstage, they've got these huge booths filled with computers. They're scrimming consistently. They probably have run and tested these compositions and said, well, you know what? These 2 game samples that we're seeing on stream are not coming up against the large statistical kind of value that we've got from having played Rengar across multiple scrims. And it seems to me that even in these messy games, these games that get dragged down into dirt, they are finding space to make this work. And you're right, it could turn out as a ban this time round. Now, we are heading towards Champion Select soon, TM. And we're looking to obviously see maybe Rengar now being prioritized. What else do you think will change up here for these 2 teams? Are you going to expect something more off the wall from G2 again?
We need confirmation. We don't actually have confirmation yet who's on blue and who's on red side. If it is red side specifically for ROX, I think that could be really interesting to see if they actually do visit the champion pools. Maybe you have an update?
I will double check.
Grabbing it, cool.
G2 is red, so I think G2 had the shortest game time, as I believe that first game was actually quite long, believe it or not, despite the gold lead. And G2 have selected red side, I believe.
And I think that's really strong. To me, this game has gone so far on the red side, and I really do think that at the end of the day, Mickey having a counter pick wasn't used in game 1, but the potential for it to be used in game 3 probably makes it smart to take them away from the red side. I don't think Rengar's going to be left open for first pick. If it is, I think it will be first pick by the ROX Tigers.
But the issue is also that if you first pick the Rengar, you're already showing your hand very extensively, and red side gets 2 picks right away, while taking the Rengar in the red side, which is where he has seen the success. You can secure the Rengar and secure 1 extra pick that will allow that Rengar to succeed.
I want to talk about Mickey. And
I say that,
and I want to say that in sort of a way that is that Mickey has had exactly what we expected of Mickey. He's had these amazing performances and he's had these downright...
Holistically, I agree, but you have to say today is the down performances. Both games he's actually found a real big struggle to not die in lane, die in the early game.
He was 1 on 5 on Cassiopeia, right, on the previous game. I mean, is this something that, having seen Mickey play previously quite a lot, Papa Smithy, is this something that will be affecting him throughout a series? Does he ever have these sort of random turnarounds where he finally finds that form again?
Absolutely. He definitely doesn't seem to be negatively affected by 1 game. He's probably gone to solo queue, played 10 games instead, rolled the cards a little bit to see where they all lie. I think he could definitely have a big performance in the last. I don't remember seeing a series where all games in a best of 3 or best of 5, he has struggled to this degree. And let's look at the other side of that. Perks has had a massive performance in both games today, and the Ari, being pulled back was big for them too.
And I think what G2 have to do is exploit that exact same thing. And another early gank towards the mid lane might send Mickey down another spiral. That's exactly what they need. Enable Perks, he can do the rest.
So do we need to see Perks on another playmaking mid laner here? Because you stick him on something like an Orianna, do you feel like G2's chances are diminished? Or do you think you need to put him on things like the Ari, put him on things like the Zed?
I don't think it's necessarily dictated. I think if you're going to get the favorable side of a Ryze-Orianna matchup, why not for the Perks? So at the end of the day, I think it's fine. But so far, so good for Perks. Again, Perks has been one of those guys who struggled the most on the international stage. So with the lights on him today, he has really thrived. And that's something very exciting for G2 fans to take away.
I think that's important as well, because we need to look at this from a fan perspective for G2. This is G2 who have not performed, but we've harped on about it, and I'm sure a lot of people are harped on about it. G2 haven't found international form. G2 haven't really performed at the level we expected from them, given their so dominant, domestic performance. Is this now an indication for G2 fans to say, actually, in the right situation, we can perform?
Well, they still haven't closed out the series, so we still have yet to answer all the questions for them. If they were to come in here in a dominating fashion, beat the ROX Tigers, they would be on the road to answering that question, because again, it is still not the most prestigious team to be defeating, right? If you have the top Korean team coming to Europe and taking down the bottom European team, we wouldn't be praising them a whole lot. So they still have yet to prove themselves, but it's a slow road that they're definitely climbing up.
And the story of G2's 2017 is still very much in the first chapters. Expected to be at MSI, expected to be at Worlds, still very dominant in their region. They've had some sidesteps. They lost their first game of this tournament, but they've looked better holistically. This is not the G2 that fell on their faces 2 international tournaments in a row in 2016. So sure, with pause, there's some optimism, but again, honorable losses don't count for a lot. If they go down this series in a 3-game series, they still have not gone as far as many analysts would have predicted. So smiles, but certainly no more than that just yet.
A small smirk, you could say. A small smirk.
Uncertain smile.
Uncertain smile. I like that one even better.
Great song.
So, what are the issues for G2 coming into this game? Because if we were to say to them, okay, ROX, clean up their early game a bit better, G2 don't get that snowball, what are the major issues? Are you pointing at
the man on our screen, has had a bit of a down season by his standards, another down series to some degree as well, has been caught out more often than you expect. I was willing to give them their plaudits of being one of the Western bot lanes, and they still are, but the gap between Sven and Mithy as a duo and other duo lanes has certainly gotten smaller, and to me, a lot of that is on Mithy's struggles.
So you could say the gap has closed?
That particular
But not
gap,
between
yes.
EU and Korea, just Sven and Mithy.
The thing is, it might also be a matter of the shift in meta. As before, when they were considered such a top and dominating duo lane, it had to do with the game revolved a little bit more around the bottom lane. You had more carries that Sven can very easily play. You had a different kind of more aggressive support. And nowadays, we're looking at more of things like the Tam Kench just used there for the Devour. You have Zyre that has to hang so far back, and they're not capable of, or these champions aren't able to really make full advantage of somebody that wants to be constantly on the aggression.
One thing we can say about Mithy, though, in a positive light, is that his breadth of champions and his champion pool that he's played competitively seems to be wide. So there's always that, ace up your sleeve, you could say, should you ever be forced into that kind of situation.
I mean, there's always the question of if you're just really good at the meta support, if you're just playing Karma, Zyra, and Malzahar every game, is that better or worse than someone who has the pocket picks that work and may win a game? Like the Leona kind of won the game off the back of Mithy in the all-needing elimination match, so he deserves his credits for that. But just because the average level performance, and remember, we run now in best of 3s, double round robins, tournaments running throughout the year. He will probably play 3 international tournaments. The consistency, I think, will be the bigger factor, given that it ends up dragging down a duo lane rather than just a solo performer in terms of Mithy.
And we sort of expect to have a really great game again. I mean, he's almost one of the unsung heroes for G2, and he has been progressively getting more and more impactful. And he actually kind of turned things on Linderang's head, because Linderang had the great first game on the Gangplank, admittedly given a lot of space to do so. But, Expects performed, he came back on the Maokai. Admittedly, it's something that's easier to make work, but he seems to be having more confidence when it comes to seeing those forward-moving plays from G2.
He had a good game of Maokai, but he started the game off at level 4 with double kill, double buffs, and when you're up against a Renekton in a matchup that relies so heavily on getting advantages in the early game, it becomes a walk in the park for the Maokai at that point. It's just so easy for him, and considering the aggression that ROX kept putting forward, Jace and Elise kept trying to engage onto the pretty much anybody that they saw, and then Maokai is just a matter of collapsing onto these very squishy members and easy peasy. So I still have doubts for Expect.
I mean, he was the whipping boy last year, though. Last year it was always about, these 4 guys are great, this Expect guy, I don't know what's going on. That was kind of the tenure you got, especially around Worlds. He was the big weakness that was pointed out, and he was still new, and he certainly had improving to do. But you think back to this tournament, in general, his level of performance has been pretty good. You think about the big taunt flashes he's made on the Shen, and the Maokai performance was solid, even if it got a good start. There were some caveats for sure, but he's had a good tournament. Perks has had an excellent tournament, given his previous international struggles as well. So have all 5 of G2 played out the same in every game? No. And they've definitely had maybe one game, the game 1 against Kongdu Monster, where they were all firing on the same cylinders. If they can show that level of performance like they did against Kongdu in game 1, I think they easily win game 3.
Agreed.
So looking at ROX, they definitely came with an interesting composition last game. I mean, it was the first time we've seen Ziggs this tournament, for instance, even though Ziggs has been seen in competitive play in that bot lane. A lot of it relied on those wave pushes, but was that where, when that got shut down, was that where the composition died? Was that it? Well, once they lost those lane pushing power because of the early game that kind of went askew, was that kind of where that composition died on its feet?
Well, it's an early game composition, right? You want to get the Elise to go to the sidelines and dive a lot. Renekton and Elise, great diving partners. Jason and Elise, again, fantastic roaming duo in the mid lane or gankers. And then the problem happened because that first kill on mid, all right, Jace falls behind, great. Then they go for that dive top, Elise gets caught, now Elise is behind. Then Renekton greeds out, and then he's behind. So immediately the top side of the map is completely nullified. Then the bottom lane really relies on that top half to get carried into the mid game.
And Crumbs and I said they would win because of pushing lanes. The pushing lanes is such an important thing in competitive. But consider the flip side. When you do have those deaths in the early game, those 3 lanes, the best thing they can do is push and push quickly. Ziggs can delete turrets. But when you're down 3, 4, 5 kills, Rengar is accelerated and has ultimate, you're pushing into getting ganked by a Rengar. You're pushing into not having ward coverage to actually hit a turret. And so you're kind of just denying yourself in many ways because your comp is built to do something, but you made so many mistakes early that doing what your comp is built to do will actually cause you to lose the game more than it will actually allow you to snowball. So it was basically playing against their win conditions was their own negative snowball, and it just allowed G2 to kind of have the easiest spike to kind of put ROX Tigers out of their misery. And after 10 minutes, it was just kind of a misery as the game was inevitably going to be won by G2.
Just for a bit of clarity, we are waiting for Expect just to be comfortable with his account, essentially. It's basically he had to remake his entire League of Legends account, set up new runes and masteries and all that kind of stuff, and we're just waiting for him to test things out.
That's new.
Yeah, that's another one. That's a new one. Let's talk about in terms of changing ROX up, because I feel like they put a lot of eggs in one basket with that composition last time round. And if they can't successfully execute the early game like they were, planning to do so, is taking a composition like that too risky for ROX, especially with how we've seen them perform highly and how we've seen them perform fairly lowly?
It might be, actually. Their own style is their downfall here, and you can't expect a team to completely change it. So the composition itself, the idea, I don't think is bad, but just all 5, like most of the champions really funneling into that style is a little bit too much. So for example, I'm going to say it again, get rid of the Lulu, put a Karma there instead.
They had
or
the
if
option.
you want, you can get rid of
They remembered Karma was up. They did flash it
Exactly.
first.
Or instead of doing the Renekton, you can go ahead and go with a Nautilus, right? That kind of shift. And the Ziggs, you can obviously switch that for maybe a Jhin. There's the Sivir, there's Ashe. You can still achieve an early game composition without going so wonky.
I agree. The second game, if you're a practice team, Katie Rolster, for example, playing that team, you'd be comfortable. But from the early game, when they had made such catastrophic mistakes, it was basically over. There was no way to look for late game guys, let's just farm. So they just farm, they push lanes, the enemy team scales better, they just lose in the late game anyways. So going for some more balanced team comps, maybe just going for comfort, which for them is split push. Mickey on Cassiopeia, sure it worked, but Cassiopeia's been shut down. Game 2, the Jace has been shut down. They need to find an Echo for Mickey or something like that. The ultimate comfort that can kind of do everything, wave clear and split push, because they need Mickey to perform. If he feeds a 3rd game in a row, and it feels bad to say someone's feeding, but he is. If he doesn't have pressure and is dying, which has been the case in most of the first 2 games, I don't think they're going to win a series.
And the sad thing is that he typically has the advantage in the mid lane before that first death comes around. He's almost always up in
Sure,
CS,
but you get
has
advantages
pressure.
by pushing and being
Exactly.
overextended, right?
Yeah, but then if you just coordinate it or you back off a little bit, you can grow that lead. You harvest.
That's not
it.
Mickey at all.
Exactly, that's not the Mickey style. But God, we just want to see it happen just one time.
He's just unlucky. He plays like the jungler's not there, and the jungler was there too much.
Yeah.
You've heard that before, I'm sure.
Yeah, get
You're a
the blame.
competitive player. You're mid lane.
Why are you not in my lane, man? Help me out.
So, ROX have seen G2's hand in terms of what they can pull out now. You know, are they going to be as surprised by the Ahri, for instance, in terms of the way they approach it in game?
I mean, you're talking about the Ahri. The mind
anything,
games are so real because, let's say Varus gets the first pick. They have a pretty good idea of what support they're going to be considering in someone like the Leona, for example, if they're going to look for a Syndra comp, which is another comfort pick for Mickey in the mid lane, and that could be easily taken in the early rounds, even if it kind of throws off and gives some information. I think because G2 have played Soraka, Leona, some of these other crazy comps, like the Ahri, for example, coming back as well, they've put in a lot of doubt. And all ROX Tigers can kind of say is, well, we haven't shown much. Now, the question is, does that mean they have more, or does that mean that they're hiding strategies? We're not sure. Maybe there aren't more. Maybe there aren't more strings to it. They are the 8th place team in the LCK, so the doubt is real.
I think the consistent thing that ROX has done is that they've in fact just banned the exact same 5 champions on both sides. Rumble, Varus, Shen, or the Shen wasn't banned, the Rumble, Varus, LeBlanc, and then Orianna and Syndra, the 2 big ones for the mid lane. So they haven't allowed Perks to have those 2 picks. Now, while I can understand the Syndra, the Orianna is a pick that you can't really snowball off in the early game, and it is reliant on the team composition, whereas most of the picks that G2 have been going for are more self-sufficient mid laners. So perhaps dropping the Orianna ban can ease the pressure onto the mid lane and decrease the likeliness of feeding the opponent and have a little bit more success.
Sometimes verbiage is funny, but I agree. I mean, Orianna's kind of the fix-it champion. She does everything decently. Late game team fighting is excellent. Banning her is kind of a weird one. To me, it says, I really want to play Echo or something that Orianna actually does pretty well against, but it is just a really strange that's been a focused ban, and I take your point. There's been a lot of expected bans coming through from ROX, and this is the time you have to change it. It's best of 1 for all the marbles.
I've heard Expect is getting into the lobby, and we're soon on the way.
Does he have his runes?
I'm hoping so. I hope he won't have to restart because he accidentally forgot to click the right rune page. Finally, before we hopefully move on, I actually saw an article that was posted actually during the game that said, one of the LCK players, I'll have to double check, said that the EU meta isn't suited for international tournaments.
Strong
That's
words.
a bold statement.
What are your thoughts as analysts on that statement?
And what is the EU meta? Like, what exactly?
How do you define it, right? I mean,
is it Unicorns of Love with Katarina and Ivern? I mean, Ivern as a champion, you could argue, may actually be shown not to be an international pick. I know Korea doesn't play it, LMS doesn't play it. They don't really understand how it works, but the EU meta is pretty hard to define. It's been definitely something that's been kind of more demonstrable in recent years. There's definitely been an EU meta that's pretty clear. It's like 2015 Worlds when they were ahead in lane swaps, for example, before other teams did. But I mean, what do you consider the EU meta right now, Crumbs?
I mean, before this, it used to be the slow game, right? They're known for just playing slow. You hit the mid and late game, and then it turns into a bit of a fiesta, and then all of a sudden the team comes out ahead, or somehow one gets ahead very early on, and then bam, the game is over. But overall, the champion picks, I don't think that it's safe. It's too early to say that a team has a meta that is not suited for international play, considering that these aren't all the top teams from international regions in the first place. And then you also add the fact that international play, when the metas clash, it's more of we're picking our things and you're picking yours and let's see how it goes, as opposed to the way that they play the games out. Because the way that they play the games out, that develops more in the tournament, whereas internationally, you really need a lot of games to see what picks are more viable than others.
Yeah, with that low context, really hard to get a read on that one.
Yeah.
Koreans talking about international teams, given Koreans dominance, always a bit weird to work out exactly what they're trying to say, but maybe it means that the Korean teams are winning scrims against EU teams. Is that the be-all, end-all? Probably not.
Finding new ways to banter.
So the winner of this goes on to the grand final that we'll play later on. What would it mean? And I'm going to ask you individually, because I think, Papa Smithy, you're maybe more... Oh, my word, I don't even need to try, because we're into Champions League. We don't need to even go into it. I'll save it till later as we're into Champions League. Everything seems 100% on track. Rengar actually banned blue side by ROX Tigers And Jace and Camille banned by G2 here.
You just lose too much going for that first pick Rengar, so they can afford to get rid of it, as you know that G2 is most likely going to ban LeBlanc.
But what's going to slide through? That's my question here, is that, you know, Varus, for example, something like the Jace, which is banned this time, but Rice has been overlooked so far. When you're seeing these bans, okay, LeBlanc on blue. So now ROX have banned LeBlanc on blue and red, even though it sounds like a Mickey champion. He was never the most comfortable on that particular assassin, but worrying, I think, for ROX, that's a blue and red side ban, given that a lot of teams just auto-ban it on red side.
It's interesting. Now it kind of throws the ball into G2's court if they were expecting to ban LeBlanc, for instance.
Yeah, the Varus just gets taken away. You don't want to give this pick away that can solo carry from 1,000 range. So Jhin remains to be the top AD carry right now, and most likely will be the first pick from ROX, and it is.
No reason to look past it. We saw the Ziggs attempts to take into the Jhin. I'm a big fan of Ziggs into Caitlyn, who can't just build a Hex Drink or really build Edge of Night or anything, but a lot of the Jhin, for example, very comfortable with that item build, so not going to be as punished. Some of these EU meta picks, you know, speaking of meta, are available, and Shen wouldn't be a massive surprise, but this early...
They have hovered, they expect has hovered plenty before in the past, so I don't expect him to fully commit to it, as it would prompt ROX to go with that GP Jhin composition that they have done in Game 1, and we saw G2 struggle against it in Game 2 in their series yesterday.
It's very clear that G2 are just happy to take Sivir into Jhin. No other context, and some teams might actually wait till later rounds because Sivir can be punished because of his short range. They could just go for a support to really shore up the duo lane. I won't even talk about Karma, because apparently no one cares about Karma.
Looks like they are thinking about the Maokai. That has given expect some success in that top lane, and it will be locked in early on here for G2. Now ROX have the pick of the draw for the next 2 bans, or rather picks. We've done our bans, Six Scoundrel. And Kha'Zix has been locked in instantaneously here, so no qualms, and it will be Shen that is followed up by ROX Tigers.
And it was either going to be Shen or Nautilus, and this was the time to take it before the top lane was pinched in the next round. Linderang on a carry, sure they had him on Fiora early in the tournament, but in an elimination game, you're not going to put all your eggs in the Linderang baskets. They're going to back away from that, and Shen has a good laning matchup, especially early against the Maokai.
Malzahar locked in instantaneously here now for G2, so they've taken that support heavy push going on in that lane as well.
And the composition's already just run straight at your face. Plenty of CC, just an immense amount of crowd control coming out of G2 between Malzahar and Maokai already. So the core of the composition's already there. It's all about adding the damage. So G2 has a lot of flexibility left, considering that Trick can play that Graves, and ROX could look to pinch it, but there are plenty of jungle picks left.
Looks like Misfortune banned. Syndra now off the table. ROX definitely favoring that on their second rotation bans to take that away from Perks. No mid laners have been picked up as of yet, though.
And mid support on the side of ROX. Probably need something to help the pushing against the Sivir in lane. And it's Sivir Maokai. Sivir Maokai was a comp they ran very much so in the previous series, but lost out on it, even though it does have that big late game power spike. I'd like to see something with an earlier power spike for mid lane, but it might be dictated depending on what Mickey wants to take.
Interesting ban of the Lulu coming through for G2. I didn't really feel like it was that much of an issue, but they did.
Yeah, somehow G2 maybe forcing ROX to finally play the Karma, and we can all be happy about it. But there's plenty of opportunities left here for ROX. You have Tahm Kench available still that could be very useful for devouring whatever Malzahar chooses to target with his ultimate, and the double global with Shen does offer a lot of ways to create plays. And the Orianna once again.
Ori Syndra, Ori Syndra,
Ori
Syndra. Every single second round has been this Ori Syndra double ban at Perks.
Looks like, I think G2 likely take their jungler here. Oh no, they're thinking about locking in their mid. I guess maybe not wanting to give something like the Cassiopeia away over to ROX. But they do lose that counter pick potential if they do choose to lock in their mid laner, which they do. It is the Cassiopeia.
However, you can do a lot with having your jungler as your last pick. There's Graves if you choose to go with just more carries and more damage, or if you feel like you need engage, and ROX picks a composition that involves a lot more disengage, like the hovered Zyra and perhaps even a Corki in the mid lane. A pick like Rek'Sai or maybe another engaged champion, maybe even an Elise does offer plenty of tools to force a fight, which is what you need when the compositions get shifted.
And it's going to be linear team fights, running at the enemy with the Sivir move speed. So Zyra makes a lot of sense compositionally rather than just looking necessarily for lane power. We've been waiting for a unique mid lane pick for Mickey. He's considering the Azir.
It's the
He's gonna lock it
Azir.
in.
It gets locked in.
Froskuren is so thrilled
Really
right
good
now.
lane matchup against the Cassiopeia. Famously outranges the Cassio by a lot.
Oh,
Okay,
Ivan.
EU meta time, I guess.
All right.
Let's see if EU meta shines at the international competition level, I suppose.
It's the double tree.
Ivan for Trick locked in, and it looks like the compositions are rounded out. Gentlemen, I'm going to push you for predictions and a little roundup if you can.
I gotta say, I'm not favoring G2's composition right now. It's only featuring 2 carries, the Sivir and the Cassiopeia. If one of them is to go down at the hands of the assassination power of ROX's lineup, they could be in a lot of trouble.
Big question to me has been the mid and I told about mid and jungle, and they don't necessarily have pushing lanes very early. Azir takes a little bit of time to get all his skills. So it's honestly on how the Kazakhs can hold the Ivan. If Ivan gets a free jungle, I think the mid game could be really powerful from G2.
Absolutely. Okay, guys. You've locked in your predictions. We've done our pick and ban phase. That means it's time to hand over to our casters, Munchables and Vedius, for the final game of this series.
The first semi-final is about to be concluded. G2 up against the ROX Tigers. The fan vote slightly in favor of G2, but a ridiculous draft coming out. I cannot wait to get into some of these matchups.
There were so many great mind games that we saw during the draft. The fact that we saw the LeBlanc band come out from the ROX Tigers on the blue side because they wanted to try and force the virus. That would leave open the Malzahar that Key has had so much success on throughout this tournament and throughout his LCK performance. I think that this is going to be an exciting matchup, and I think that finally we get to see which team can get the better of their opponents.
Absolutely. Mickey locking in the Azir as well. That mid lane is going to be all eyes focused on, but it's G2 against the ROX Tigers. And we're just about ready to kick this game off. I want to hear some noise from you guys as we head on to Summoner's Rift for the last game in this first semi-final.
We had a dominant game 1 from the ROX Tigers. We had a dominant game 2 from G2 Esports.
Yes.
Now it all comes down to game 3, and we have to look at the pushing power of all of these laners. But we might not have time for that as G2 go for a sneaky level 1 play.
They know Key wants to get some plants out here, and they want to punish him.
Oh.
Giving away the ghost, though. Key will keep himself alive there. So every single level 1, we've seen G2 be very proactive, group up somewhere and try and find an advantage.
It's because of how often ROX do try to go for these level 1 plays. They want to guarantee vision control during the start to know where Trick is starting, because it dictates a lot in what Seonghwan wants to try and do, right? And what you'll see a lot more junglers doing these days is actually try and get an early priority on the Raptors, because if you actually pick up that Raptor camp first, it will give you that early level 2. It's so much more valuable picking it up as a first camp rather than a second. And what we've seen a lot from the ROX Tigers in particular is they'll look to try and invade around the level 4, level 5 mark because they want to try and contest the second spawning of these Raptors. And the problem for ROX is in the second game, they weren't strong enough to try and do it. They ended up getting punished for it thanks to the great start from Trick. But we saw in game 1 what they can do when they're able to get ahead. Trick was put so far behind from the constant aggression and invading that we saw from Seonghwan and his ability to control that vision. So we have to look around the 4-minute mark towards the second spawning of the Raptor camps to see how this varies between the two teams.
Yeah, and we have to put our eyes towards this mid lane. Trick actually been very aggressive.
I love
here.
this. I love it.
He wants to steal away the red buff. We've seen this a million times on Ivan, and Trick gonna live up to that reputation.
This is a classic Europe. Oh, I say it's an Ivan special, not a European special, just an Ivan special. And it's so easy for him to steal away these camps. Another successful steal. Note that Seonghwan, he was fully aware that Trick did not start topside, but he's actually going to go for another level 2 gank in the mid lane.
Trick wants to make something happen. Mickey dodges away from the vines, though. And it means that it's just going to be traded out between Perks and Mickey. Trick can't quite find his target there.
Now, Seonghwan will know that his red buff has been stolen away. He is level 3, he cleared out the entire top half of his jungle, and because he's just seen Trick move towards his blue buff, Seonghwan knows that he should be safe to steal away the top red. So even though he is able to get a steal, Trick won't be able to 3-buff his enemy jungler.
Yeah, so not ideal scenario for G2, but nobody losing out either. It's going to be an even trade across the board. And It's going to be a lot on Trick once again in this game, as it's definitely been a battle of the junglers. Neither of them on Rengar this time. Sven very low, just about dodging out the deadly flourish. But, I mean, in this jungle matchup, do you feel like Ivan or Kha'Zix has a particular advantage?
Well, in terms of early power, Kha'Zix definitely has the edge. But thanks to the great wave clear, or jungle clear even, that Trick has, you can actually get a very early level 4, but instead he's prioritizing a couple of early ganks.
Yeah, he wants to be aggressive here. Forces the flash out of Sang-Yoon. Nice bit of play there, proactive play, and he's definitely making his pressure known on the map. Perkz actually getting exhausted on this one. Mickey with a nice trade coming out. It costs him a summoner though.
Well, Perkz has actually decided to go heal in this matchup to give him a bit of sustain, and trading power will help if he moves off to a side lane later on. But nevertheless, the fact that Mickey is being hyper-aggressive is just helping support his jungler as he looks to control the top half of G2's jungle. Also note that the Maokai is starting to get pushed underneath his turret. I think it would be very dangerous to dive a Maokai early on into the game.
And Sung-Hwan as well, he's got very, very little HP right now,
So just pressure is the name of the game right now for ROX Tigers, but that should come as no surprise, really.
Sven taking huge amounts of damage. The Ignite is down. Will it take away? Sven goes down. First blood to Key in a 2v2.
Ends up getting caught out. Sven giving away the first blood is going to be so big for the bottom lane of the ROX Tigers. The fact that they're able to relieve a lot of the pressure coming out from this Sivir Malzahar lane is going to enable them to get a lot of the push, enable Sung-Hwan to move around the bot side of the map and look to consider trying to go for that dive, trying to look to take that early tower on the bottom half of the map.
Yeah, and it has to be said, both of the other early games in this series have been dictated by the junglers, but the bottom lane of ROX taking matters into their own hands, taking that lead for themselves in a 2 versus 2, and it's Sven that got caught out. It cost him both his summoners as well. So expect Sung-Hwan to kind of hover around that bottom side of the map.
Now Sung-Hwan looking around mid.
Would be a 2v2, but it's going to be no mana for Perkz. But they can't really commit to that one, especially since Mithy arrived in the mid.
And you can see that ROX, again, just continuing this pressure. Trick is doing what he can to alleviate some of that pressure by coming into the lanes and helping push so that they can go for an early back. And Sven, he just gets caught by the root. He doesn't have a spell shield, so he ends up getting double chain CC'd with the W as well. The Ignite was already up when he threw out the heal, so thanks to the Grievous Wounds, the reduction is there, and he ends up losing his life. And again, this just means so much for the bottom lane, because now Sang-Yoon, he's come back with a serrated Dirk. Sven isn't able to get himself a BF sword. The item spike differential is absolutely massive, and it makes things difficult for G2. It's not lost. It is only just a small setback for the European squad, but it's that face of concern.
Yeah. Certainly not the best foot forward at the start of this game. I like how the junglers so far have had a gentleman's agreement. Sung-Hwan's like, you know what, I've got the top half of the map, you've got the bottom half of the map. Constantly trading raptors and buffs between these two. But now, second rotation of buffs will be coming up, and with an Ivan and a Kha'Zix, you've got to expect some kind of action around those.
Well, one thing you have to remember about Ivan in particular is his ability to very easily give away buffs, which means that the Cassio will be able to get a very quick blue buff under her belt, which is always very valuable against an Azir who's always going to be looking to push you underneath your turret. And it does make things a little bit difficult for Mickey, who's always looking to be that aggressor.
We do have a pause. We'll let you know what's going on with the pause as soon as we know. We'll pass that information to you guys. But so far, it's been a fairly passive early game from both teams, which, to be honest, in the first 2 games of this series, it's been pretty action-packed.
Oh, it really has. The fact that both junglers were able to get themselves first blood on that Rengar was the cause of that explosiveness. Meanwhile, for the time being, this is actually pretty good for Trick, the fact that he's able to just free farm for the time being. He is actually a little bit behind in farm from Sung-Hwan, but that's because of all the pressure that he's been trying to relieve from G2's laners. They struggled in the bot, struggled in the mid, struggling in the top. And Trick has just been doing what he can to be like, all right, guys, I'll help you push, and then you can go back, pick up a couple of items, and then return.
Yeah, I can inform you guys, it's a bit of an FPS drop for Perkz in that mid lane, so should hopefully be able to get that resolved ASAP and get this game underway once again. Apologies again about the technical difficulties we have been having today. But we should hopefully be able to get back on track sooner rather than later. But this is a big game. You know, these players, they've got to be at peak performance here, because this is not only EU versus Korea, but this is G2, the guys that beat Kongdu. They're looking to send another Korean team home, but ROX, they're already off to a great start in this game. And there's definitely a bit of back and forth between people on who is actually going to take this one. Predictions are still a little bit up in the air.
But it's also more than just that, right? It's not just about EU versus Korea. It's also about G2's reputation and their honor, right? They want to prove to the world that they can perform at international competitions, that they can step up when the expectations are there. And I think that right now they're still a little inconsistent. Especially when we think back to their Game 1 performance. But at the same time, their Game 2 makes it possible for you to argue the opposite, right? I think that G2 have done very well at this tournament. I really want to praise Perks as an individual too. I feel like he's stepped up. He's grown a lot since his last year's performance. And he has really been a big factor in the success of the team.
And when you talk about Perks, you then immediately have to start talking about Mickey as well. They spoke about it on the analyst desk. Mickey, in this series, has not been having a good time. Both lanes he's lost pretty handedly. This time, he has a favored matchup. He's got that Azir into the Cassiopeia. He has that range advantage. But the question is, what can he do with that? Can he actually punish Perks and lock down that mid lane?
Well, for an Azir, there is always that possibility of the Shurima shuffle, knocking the Cassio into the Kha'Zix. You have enough damage in the early game to be able to net some kind of significant lead, but it's difficult, right? Your main priority is to just keep the pressure onto the Cassio, constantly force her back, keep her underneath the turret. But the big thing for ROX is they actually have a lot of control. Again, think back to their Game 1 where they had the Cassio Miasma, they had the Jhin ultimate, they had the Rengar ultimate. Like, there are a lot of tools in their kit to act as zoning abilities, right? So it would be a big area that would belong to the ROX Tigers. It would be impossible for G2 to contest. And they've got a similar thing here. You've got Key on the Zyra. His ultimate is going to be monumental in these dragon fights. You have the Jhin ult once again. You have the Azir ultimate too. Like, there are a lot of tools ready to split up G2 and make it difficult for them to find these fights.
Absolutely. Looks to me like the technical issues have been resolved and the players are going to jump back onto Summoner's Rift. The game is underway once more. Fingers crossed, no more pauses throughout this semi-final. G2 on the back foot to start things off. We've got a 1,000 gold lead in favor of ROX.
And it all comes off the back of that bottom lane first blood, as well as the CS differentials we can see starting to accrue, not only in the top lane, but also in the jungle matchup. This is a good start for ROX.
Yeah.
You want that early gold advantage, especially when playing with the Kha'Zix. Once he hits that level 6 mark, that's where he's going to look to apply a little bit more pressure on the map, and the bottom lane is the best place for him to do it. He needs to be a little bit careful of Mithy hitting that level 6.
Well, speaking of Mithy, he's been rooted up in this combo between them. The crit goes through, but the exhaust from Mithy saves his own life.
You eat a single root from the Zyra, and you end up getting heavily punished for it, but look.
Good call. Sven looking to block these shots, and Trick will be there on the front line. The shot nearly goes onto Mithy there. That was dangerous territory, but G2 survived.
And that's another member of G2's bottom lane being forced back. His level 6 is going to be delayed. Fortunately for Sven, he'll be able to soak up some of the solo experience, and this is a good movement from Trick, being there in the event of a possible dive from Seonghwan. But also realizing that Seonghwan continues to maintain control over the top half of the jungle. And it's fortunate that Expect is playing a Maokai, because if he was playing anything else, that dive would have been a very tasty option for the side of the ROX Tigers.
It certainly would have. Mickey continuing to layer in pressure in the mid lane, but Perks is going aggressive for this one, wants the fight, but Seonghwan is nearby. Perks smells a rat, does not want to push too far. In the meantime, Sven taking a huge amount of damage. This is one of the difficult things about AD carry in this patch is you can lose trades to supports.
Yep. That is the power of Zara. Trick has spotted out Sungwon.
Yeah. Daisy going to be joining the fight, but it stands united as Mithy arrives as well. Trick very low, flashing away from this one. Mithy has to get out of there as well. Perks arriving on the scene, but it's Sangwon chasing down Mithy. This is going to be another kill. The root comes through and Sangwon grabs it. Trick's going to be going down as Leanderang has arrived. He's looking for the taunt and he should be able to finish this one off. Dodges away from that knock-up and it's Mickey flashing forward to get one more auto. Another kill for the mid laner and it's 3-0 to ROX.
And this is the early power of Kha'Zix. Trick, he tries to just move through ROX's jungle after stealing away the red buff. And Sungwon, he's there, he's lying in wait. They force the play using the Shen ultimate that they have. Expect he can't follow up. And Perks, while he does have the damage, the fact that Shen is there when G2 only have a level 5 support, it is impossible for them to be able to turn this fight in their favor. So ROX off to a fantastic start, and this is where they need to just continue riding on this early game momentum.
2,000 is the gold lead right now. No objectives taken just yet, but the Mountain Drake could be the first port call. Songhwan not starting that one just yet. Very low on HP and mana, so wants to head back to base first. In the meantime, this bottom lane for G2 have been really struggling.
I mean, it all stems back to that first blood, right? The fact that Sven gets killed and then Mithy gets forced back so he can't get his level 6. But you can see here, Sungwon, he's potentially looking for a gank mid. He sees an opportunity onto Trick, who has absolutely no mana. Mithy's only level 5, so he can't provide any kind of support. And then even though Perks joins the fray, he's in a 1v3 effectively, which makes it so easy for Sungwon to turn his attention onto the squishy support, which is Mithy. The heal isn't enough to help. And G2 are just forced to retreat from the get-go. There's no way that they can even consider fighting. And this is the risk that you run when playing Ivan. He doesn't have early game power. He relies on the success of his laners to do well, and right now Perks is the only one doing okay.
Perks is wanting a fight right now. Expect trying to find his way to the mid lane. Teleport coming out though, and actually that's a big ultimate bird. Perks now going to get aggressive on, but Mickey's gone too far. Expect gets the kill. G2 survived the situation.
Mickey feels that he has the support from his team. Sungwon was there, as well as the teleport coming out from Linderang. But the moment he goes in, G2 just get the collapse. They get themselves a kill. Now Mithy is lying in wait.
Yeah. Mickey went a little bit too far too soon for that one. And now people eyeing up this dragon area a little bit. Both junglers are around though, so no one can just force that objective. But just trying to gain some semblance of vision control here as ROX. I think a little bit nervous at this point that this gold lead that they managed to accrue for themselves could quite easily be turned the other way. They still are 1,500 gold ahead. As we said before, no objectives in the back pocket just yet. They need to turn that gold lead into more.
Well, for the time being, ROX are doing fine. They have good control over the bottom half of G2's jungle, very similar to what we saw in Game 1 from them, and they're just utilizing the fact that they have a stronger early game. They have more power, they have more gold, they know that if G2 tried to fight, they will be the ones at a disadvantage. But ROX making a few greedy plays there. I feel like trying to solo the dragon when your mid lane is getting pushed underneath. Trick is hanging around. Is risky, and you can't afford to be making those plays if you are the ROX Tigers.
And especially when you don't have a control ward, you don't have a sweeper there, it's always going to be a risky situation. And obviously we can see G2 had full vision, and the second that Trick walks through that mid lane, Sangwon sees that he has to back away. Trading back and forth in the top lane, but once again, that Shen-Maokai matchup, not going to see too much in terms of kill pressure.
Wait, that's not your most riveting matchup ever. I mean, he's just got a red buff. I expect he's getting aggressive.
Nautilus Maokai, it's
that's very true, very
definitely
true.
a competitor.
But look, we once again see Expect making his way around the mid. He wants to try and shut down Mickey as early as he can.
Yeah, they want to go back in onto this one. Mickey has been the focus for G2 this entire series. Perks with a nice ult, but they can't push further. And I like that Songwon has been everywhere he's been needed so far this game to shut down G2's attempts.
And it did stop the dive coming out from G2. It looked like they really wanted to commit for that, try and utilize the fact that Mickey had no flash. Expect had his up, but they couldn't quite punish him now. Now Trick has to provide some support for Perks. Love this use of the brush because Perks is now invisible to Mickey. But it will now enable him to go back. Blue Us will be traded across. For the time being, things have slowed down a little bit.
Yeah, once again, a bit of a reset for these two teams, and the gold lead just hovering around that same point. And I think both teams very tentative here, because let's just remember, this is the last game in the semi-final. Whoever wins moves to the final, whoever loses is out of the Intel Extreme Masters 2017. So nobody wanting to make that first major step and risk losing it all.
Oh, Perk's taking a lot of damage.
Going aggressive for that one. Actually takes a lot more than he's able to trade back.
And again, Trick just has to come into the lane, help relieve some of the pressure being exerted by Mickey. This is something that Trick has been doing a lot throughout the series, where he just walks toward Perks, walks towards Sven and says, hey guys, I see you guys are struggling. Here, let me help you out, right? And it sacrifices his own farm, but it's for the greater good of dealing with these pushing lanes.
And that's kind of Ivan in a nutshell, right? Kind of sacrificing your I guess, carry potential to play another supportive role, and definitely showing that in this game. Just going to keep sending Daisy at Mickey with those trigger seeds just to keep on layering this pressure so that Perks can shove the lane in.
But now look at the minimap. You can see Sungyun has... Oh, he was just about to go back. The minion wave will be pushed in bot. The minion wave has just been pushed in mid. Mithy's level 7. This is prime time for G2 to look, as Dragon could be a big objective for them.
Certainly could, but we do have a couple of bases coming through. They don't want to force the issue while they're in a bit of a power drop. They have gold to spend. They want to pick up some more items before any chance of a fight comes their way, because they need to be at their strongest. But again, vision control of the Dragon area still very much split. ROX Tigers, though, they want this mid lane. They want to get onto Perks.
I'm going to try and shut down the Snake. She's farming quite nicely, level 10 right now. Bear in mind, she does have Flash.
Perks in a lot of trouble right now. Sungwon has the damage. Stand United going to be channeled. Perks, can he escape the fight? He's all on his own, and he will go down. Leanderak grabs the kill.
Bit of a misplay there from Perks. He just wanted to push the wave out. Thought that he could get the ultimate off, and he doesn't flash in time. If he'd flashed a little bit earlier, would have given him a little bit more room to breathe. But instead, he holds onto it, ends up going down. And now this is a big window for ROX to set up around the Dragon.
G2 just forced away here. Perks, not the longest respawn time of this early on in the game, but also not a mid laner that you can charge around the map particularly on. So it'll take a while before he can contest into this Dragon area. But ROX, they don't pull the trigger just yet.
Right now, the aim of the game is vision. If anything, ROX do that incredibly well. They're always about control before they try and contest an objective, which is not something that they've done throughout the LCK. Often they've been a little bit lax when it comes to vision, so it's nice to see them working so hard to control these objectives. And I am a little bit surprised as to how passive Sunghwan was early on into the game. He's definitely making up for that as we transition into the mid game. 1-0-1 right now, completed jungle item, and they're going for the mid turret.
Yeah, first tower might go down here. Daisy pops, Stranglethorn will shove everyone away, but Mickey's going deep, gets 2 knockbacks, and it might just be 2 kills as Trick tries to escape, but the curtain call goes through. Mickey, he's an all-or-nothing player, and he's going all in this semi-final.
Very clean dive from the side of ROX Tigers. They take advantage of the fact that they have a great siege composition with the Zyra ultimate, with the Azir ultimate, and it becomes so easy to get this chip damage down, and now it's a G2 that are forced to respond to the pressure of ROX.
Teleport from Expect with the tier 2, still getting incredibly low on this one. Expect goes in, Sungwon tanking the tower in the meantime, Mithy flashing away with his life, but Mickey follows him, takes 2 tower shots for his trouble, and Expect looks to capitalize. He finishes off the kill, he gets the shutdown. I didn't see whether the tower dropped.
But G2, they're able to defend for the time being. They do lose quite a few members, 3 overall.
Tower survives on 171 HP.
But ROX are just continuing this pressure. This is exactly what they needed to do. They knew they had the early game spike. They can't afford to wait around for this Ivan to complete his 2-3 major items and enable G2's teamfighting comp to be effectively unkillable. The bright side for G2 is this Maokai is getting very fed, 2-0-1 right now. But you have to wonder, where is the damage going to come from for G2? Perks, he holds onto his flash until the wall is used. It doesn't matter because the collapse from ROX is too strong. You can see the damage from the Azir is so good when it is followed up from the Shen dash, from the Kha'Zix dash. And it becomes so consistent damage that G2 have no answers for, and you're constantly trying to deal with all these Zyra plans, but this is where ROX get a little bit too greedy. They think that they can kill Expect, They don't prioritize the turret. They end up losing a member, and then this is where you can see the bloodthirsty Mickey in action.
I was going to say, that's the most Mickey play you can really see there. Flash diving underneath an inhibitor tower to finish that kill. Yeah.
To sacrifice his kill streak in order to give it over to Maokai, which could very well come back to bite them later.
Hashtag worth.
But for the time being, ROX maintain control over the game. They've got a big tower advantage by taking that tier 1 down in the mid lane. And now G2 have been forced to split their laners up. Cassio has been moved to a side lane. Sven and Mithy are now dealing with the pressure in mid. And again, we have to watch what ROX do. Investing a lot of time into vision. They want to try and force G2 into these fights because they know right now that they are the stronger team.
And when you look across the scoreboard, Expect has been doing phenomenally in this game. He's kind of the beacon of hope for G2 at this point. They are going to get a top lane tower, but in the meantime, that will be traded down in this bottom lane. And also the Dragon was started by Seonghwan.
So a lot of members mid for G2. Smart from Perks to realize that he wouldn't be able to defend that tower because the Shen ultimate is back up. You have the Zyra and Jhin to be able to set up for the siege. So he just has to concede the tower. G2 make the trade top for bot. But it's now going to allow the Shen to move down into the bottom lane. You can send your duo of Sangyun and Ki up into the top half of the map. Then, as Seonghwan, he uses the Azir to push mid, and then they push into the top half of G2's jungle. This enables them to then take that final outer tower and gain full control of the map to then better set up for the 25-minute to 30 Baron.
4,000 gold lead now at 20 minutes. Let's just take a minute to kind of step back and figure out how we got to this point in the game, because Mickey has been finally doing well in this semi-final. This isn't the same Mickey than what we saw in the first 2 games.
It really does help when he has the favorable match. I mean, he's had a favorable matchup a few times in his defense, but this time he hasn't been overzealous, other than when he dived the base tower, right? But yeah, he's just been playing it calm and calculated on Azir. The main priority is just to poke, shove, and if you see an opportunity to make a play, so far Mickey has taken it, and he's done a great job. He was able to get the shutdown onto Perks, and it's nice to see that he is playing restrained, but I don't think he's completely restrained just yet.
I don't think Mickey will ever be completely
I don't think he ever will be.
I don't think that's the kind of guy he is. Seonghwan is going to find Mithy out in the jungle, all on his lonely lonesome, but Void Grip will lock him down. Mithy gets away with his life. Redemption keeps him alive as Daisy just bullying the ROX players away. Trick will block out those shots. G2 walk away, but concede complete control.
And the mid tower goes down to the minions, so overall ROX do gain overall, and they'll get themselves the top tower. But this is the play that ROX needed to do. Good vision control over the top side of the map. Mithy gets punished because he's roaming around an area of the map that he has no control over. And they're able to secure the final outer tower.
This is just ROX consistently building this gold lead. 6,000 now almost for them. 5.5 more like, but they are utterly in control, and it's down to G2 to find a way back into this game. Seonghwan doesn't want that to happen. Straight onto Trick, who has to flash away. Mithy will be there to protect his jungler and training a bit of damage back themselves. Seonghwan, he's got some reinforcements of his own.
But you can see ROX, they're trying to get the collapse down. The root lands onto Trick.
Trick could be in trouble here. Isolate damage. Stranglethorns will knock up the tree, and he gets taken down. Teleport being channeled by Linderang as well. Will get cancelled in the end, as he just wants to push that tier 2.
Now, I wonder if ROX put their eyes on the Baron. They know that the jungle is unavailable for Trick. Linderang is pushing down on the bottom lane. And if they do, Expect will be forced to TP. So at the very least, ROX could look to force a TP play to better set up for that bottom tier 2 tower.
Yeah, ROX trying to set up a death brush there. Little do they know there's a ward on the Baron pit for G2, so they won't fall into any traps just now. And it's going to relieve some of that pressure, just having that sneaky ward in the Baron pit. While obviously Trick was down, that would have been a very, very tense situation had they not had the vision.
I mean, the reason why we're even here is it all stems back to Sven dying in the bottom lane when he shouldn't have. Mithy getting caught out and forced back, so he gets denied that early level 6, or the level 6 that he's supposed to get on time. And that just allows Seonghwan to play around the top side of the map. He can throw a couple of ganks down onto Perks. He can keep the pressure up top to enable Linderang to keep the pressure on. And then Sang-Yun and Key, they just know that they can keep fighting down in the bottom lane. They always know they're going to win out on those trades. So ROX, this time, had 3 successful pushing lanes, and that's the big difference from Game 2 to Game 3. ROX rely so heavily on having the advantage to enable Seonghwan to play this aggressively.
Expect has been caught and locked up. It's on the Maokai though, so can take a bit of a beating. Look at this aggressive tower placement from Mickey so far up the lane, and it's so difficult to deal with for G2.
It'll mainly be used as a zoning tool. It now becomes hard for G2 to push back out, especially when you have Shen just wailing away on this tower.
And the pressure that creates on these side lanes when G2 can't actually push out in their mid lane. Linderang can just keep pushing away, and they'll start to get that top lane pushed as well shortly. G2 slowly but surely losing the amount of space they have on this map to maneuver.
Well, their main priority for the time being is to secure some control around the Baron. They don't want to give it away for free. They cannot allow that to happen because then this Shen becomes unstoppable. Maokai is already getting to a point where he really is being outscaled by the Shen. The fact that he has completed the Titanic Hydra means that he is constantly pushing into the Maokai, and he's even able to outtrade him as they just butt heads for the time being. But you can see how heavily ROX are investing into controlling this jungle of G2 because they want to set up for the Baron. That is the big objective for them, to really break into the base.
Here comes Daisy, wants to knock up, but Seonghwan escapes. Expect forcing the fight here. Key's been found. Can they finish off the kill? First kill going the way of G2 as Linderang gets onto the backline. Mickey's been locked up. Get the kill. You've got to get it quick. They managed to find another pick. G2 steaming ahead in this fight, and ROX running away with their tails between their legs.
Such a big fight for G2. They knew they needed to force something before they lost full control over this Baron. Now they're going to commit to it, but remember, Seonghwan is alive. Sang-Yun has his ult.
Current call comes down. Expect should be able to block a lot of these shots. They can't see the Baron, importantly. This is the power of Ivan. Linderang goes in, but he's not that tanky just yet. There's 4 members hitting him.
He stole it!
The Baron! Seonghwan takes it out, flashes out of the pit. He's maybe going to get away with his life, but Perks doesn't want that to happen. Trying to chase this one down, but Seonghwan, he's just out of range. He's Kha'Zix as well. He might be able to jump out of this one. What a play!
Seonghwan needed to be the hero in that play. He had to steal away the Baron to keep ROX from falling behind, and he's able to do it. G2 go for the gamble and they lose.
He even takes a blue buff as a consolation on top of everything else. We thought that that was the play for G2. We thought that was what was going to pull them back in the game, but ROX Tigers slowly but surely sinking their claws into G2.
And yesterday, we praised G2 for their ability to take the Baron. They had such a clean execution. They tried to use the brushes to deny that vision from ROX. They weren't able to do it. And this is how the fight kicks off. Notice the flanking TP from Expect enables them to quickly lock down Key, but the key turning point is this ult from Mithy. Because they can shut down Mickey, the big damage dealer on the side of ROX, ROX are just forced to retreat. G2 feel right now that they are strong enough to commit to this objective. They have a Cassio, it goes down pretty quick, but then the Jhin ultimate is the big swinging factor. They're still DPSing, There is the control ward in the brush, so now ROX have vision, and then here comes the crit, and that's enough for Seonghwan to go in, get the Q smite. Perfect setup for ROX, and there was no way in which G2 could stop it. They didn't even have vision of Seonghwan over the wall. They didn't even try to stop him because their priority was stopping Linderang, and the fact that they were able to steal away that Baron is massive for the side of ROX.
And all they get off of that fight in the end of it, even though G2 win in terms of the actual kills, they just get a little bit of pocket money, but they're still 7,000 gold behind. And now with the Baron, the ROX Tigers can start to sweep up these final outer towers. There's only 1 remaining in that top lane, and they're posturing to finish it off.
Now, keep your eyes on that ward. Oh, Seonghwan.
Seonghwan's been caught. Trick gonna try and follow this CC. Stand United comes in though, and that's actually Perks gets it turned around on him. They can't finish the kill. They don't have the damage, and they are punished for it.
G2 just lose their mid laner after trying to get a pick onto Seonghwan. The Shen ultimate doing so much work, and now they have 2 members with Baron-empowered minions walking their way into the base of G2.
This is very bad news for any European fans out there. ROX pushing forwards. Expect trying to start this fight, trying to keep his team in the game, but it's Sven that gets the first kill. Expect is going to drop as well. It's a 1-for-1 trade. The Inhib survives.
ROX, they're going to continue on with their siege, but a lot of ultimates have been used. Mickey still has his available, but the primary wave clear of Sven is there to try and stop the push from ROX.
Yeah, ROX attempt number 2 on this inhib now, with no big tanky tree to start this engage. The tower incredibly low will fall, but ROX don't want to overextend. They're going to be happy with just that objective.
Good pressure from the side of ROX Tigers. They do overcommit a little bit. Seonghwan probably shouldn't have gone that close to the tower, but it was a good catch from Expect. The fact that he ended up losing his life will enable ROX to get that. But you can see, just keep your eyes on the positioning of Perks. He tries to move up to get the ultimate down. He ends up getting rooted by the Azir combo plus the deadly flourish from the Jhin. And with him gone, it becomes very difficult for G2 to get a successful fight. So even though Expect tries to force an engage here, they just don't really have the damage because Sven, he's forced to sit on the backline. He's zoned away by the Azir soldiers. And this is the range advantage the ROX have that make it so difficult for the low-range Cassio and the low-range Sivir to really get involved in these fights.
It has to be said that Key is unlocking all of the doors for ROX Tigers in this game. His Zyra has been on point, landing route after route, zoning out the entire team. His Stranglethorns have always been perfectly placed, and he was the one that started this whole thing straight away in the 2v2 down bottom.
Comes back to the draft, ROX. I thought they were going to struggle to deal with the Cassio, but they bring out the Azir, and they are making it work beautifully. Mickey having a stellar game, along with the bottom lane. Not only did they get the kill onto Sven, but as you rightly said, the zoning tools, Munch, are so effective in being able to siege onto these towers. And think of how differently this game could have gone if G2 were just able to get themselves the Baron. We don't have time for that because G2, they're looking to defend their base.
Certainly are. Mickey has been locked up, but a nice Emperor's Defy denies that one. Trick's the one taking damage now. Linderang jumps in as Daisy will be eliminated. That's the power of that Azir passive. The tower just denies any kind of countering.
But they do get the ultimate out from Linderang. Emperor's Divide unavailable for Mickey, as well as the Stranglethorns from Key, which means that the windows for engage are much easier for G2 if they just get that flash route from Expect.
It's just finding that opportunity that's difficult. Tower already half HP, but here comes Expect onto this front line. Takes so much damage though. He's just not tanky enough to stay in these skirmishes. Every time he goes in, just gets chunked out immediately.
Remember that he was one of the better or the more succeeding lanes for G2. Coming out of the laning phase, it's 2-0 and 4 after all the kills that he was able to pick up. But it's just so difficult to deal with this Azir. Already completed the Void Staff, just shreds through that magic resistance of Expect. Level 17 on Mickey as well. G2 just have to do their best to stall out. If they can find some kind of a fight, then maybe they can win out. But the low range, you're really seeing the difference in range champions, right? The fact that it's so easy for ROX to keep G2 at arm's length, make it so difficult for them to engage. And with the Baron spawning in a minute, all ROX have to do is make their way over to that big objective, and that becomes their main priority. With that Baron under their belt, it becomes a very easy game for ROX to close out.
And the really unpleasant thing for G2 at this point is, first of all, 2 dragons have already gone the way of ROX Tigers. It's a mountain and an infernal. The third will be spawning soon, which G2 will really struggle to contest. And then on top of that, if they do stall into the late game, which is how they stay in this game, ROX, the idea of them getting an Elder Drake with the infernal, with the mountain, that could be the final nail in the coffin. But G2, they're down but not out. Still, all 3 inhibitors remain.
3-item spike now picked up for Sven, along with the Infernal Drake spawning on the board. I wonder if G2 try and make this trade. The Infernal Dragon has spawned. Do they try and just rush down the Baron right now?
They have to. They've got to do something, that is for sure. They can't let that go for free, and G2, they're making the miracle play. We've got to see this go down ASAP, but ROX, they know what's up. They've spotted it out with a ward.
Oh, here we go.
A lot of damage coming down. They can take this quickly with Perks, but Curtain Call comes on in 3,000. Does he get another steal?
They got it.
It goes the way of G2, but do they win the fight? Look at the Emperor's Device, the damage coming on through, but it's Mickey flashing to the back of the pit. He's going to be able to go down, and now G2, they've got to finish this fight off. Sang-Yoon flashes out of the pit. Linderang on this front line, but he's into Guardian Angel. Seonghwan trying to escape. will walk away with his life. Linderan gonna try and shadow dash out.
G2 go for the risky play. They say, you take the Dragon, we're gonna take the Baron, but they end up winning the fight. It is 2 for 2, but they can be happy with that objective as Sven goes to the 1v1.
Sven 1v1ing Sungwon. You should not lose that as a Kha'Zix, but the spell shield is on point. G2 take a huge swing in their favor.
This is exactly what G2 needed to find an avenue back into the game. ROX, they decided that they could somehow stop G2 and get the Infernal Drake, but the greed gets the better of them, and G2 are able to find an avenue back into the game. Now, that deficit is still large. This game is certainly not in G2's favor just yet, but you can see how G2, they just commit to the Baron. It's still in the brush. There is no vision for ROX Tigers, and that was a fantastic Emperor's Divide, but it actually knocked all the members of G2 out of the pit. That left Mickey inside, just easy pickings for Expect to dive on, and while Perks does drop, the damage has already been done. Sungyun, he can't get involved in the fight. There's nothing left for him to do. G2 can just start to look to clean up the rest of the surviving members. And this is where Sven, he sticks around, tries to clear some walls. Sungyun thinks, if I can just get another Baron off of Sven, this will be big for me. But he uses the brush, uses the spell shield, and he's able to get a big crit to round things out for G2.
Beautiful play from Sven, and getting that auto attack cancel as well to get that double auto in. And now G2, they've got the Baron buff in their pockets, and it's going to give them the tools they need to start to take some of these towers. That's only their second tower of the game against this 7 of ROX Tigers. This is so important that they take a lot with the Baron.
Just, you have to respect the gold difference between the two teams. Perks has only just recently picked up his 3rd major item, and ROX have a lot of damage, but Sungwon, he gets locked up in the miasma. And I feel a lot of tension right now, Munch, because this is very big for both squads. ROX had such a commanding lead, but G2 are finding ways back into it. They've caught Sungwon.
Yeah, jumps out to safety though, will keep himself alive. This game is on the edge of a knife right now. If anybody oversteps, it could just be game-breaking. Either team could just shove straight through into inhibitors at this point.
Look at the positioning of ROX right now, though. They have priority over mid. They're looking to just get a shove on. Remember, Azir is great at shoving towers. You have the Baron empowered recalls if you're G2 to get back as quickly as you can. But this could very well be a big mistake. Sven, he's not going back yet.
Sven's staying in that bottom lane. Now recalls for this one. And Expect threatening the flag should mean that they can push this one away. They aren't going to lose any more towers just yet. Mickey has to retreat over that wall.
Good awareness from G2. They knew their back timings. They knew they were able to get there in time to stop the push from ROX. You can see ROX, they're not just being passive. They're not just allowing G2 to take control over the map. They're utilizing this Shen pick. Notice that they've just sent Mickey top to get a bit of a push down. But have a look at G2 on the hunt, gets popped.
The hunt key is going to be locked up. Stand United comes into play, but it's not quick enough. Sangyu trades it 1-for-1. It's both supports down, but this will be a tower dropping as well. Perks just about survives the curtain call. Redemption healing him up once more. Daisy going a bit aggressive on this one. But it's going to be the tower still surviving. It's just a 1-for-1 trade.
So G2, they're not able to get any objective off of that. A lot of ultimates were traded back and forth. G2 were very lucky that Mickey was not in that fight.
Yeah.
They did notice that he was topside. They tried to punish the window, but now it will allow ROX Tigers to move around the Dragon and get a bit of vision control, which is what they need. The big Elder Drake is on his way. You can see how they just use the fact that they have so much movement speed to get the capitalization, but Mithy takes the tower aggro, which means that he gets chunked out very early on. It allows Sungwon to just dive in, get the damage down, and quickly escape to safety.
And Mithy's exhaust there just a tiny bit too late, and it does mean he ends up going down. Mickey going to grab his blue buff, make sure he's ready for the next fight. This is not as one-sided as it was earlier on. The gold gap is closing slightly. Still 8,000 in favor of ROX, let's not understate it. The G2 holding on for now. Still holding all 3 inhibitors. They've yet to actually break into the base. But ROX, now that Baron is gone, are feeling confident again. Mithy's been locked up. Oh, look at the damage out of Mickey. The curtain call will follow through onto Sven and Perks. A lot of damage coming down. Now, without that support, without that nether grasp, this tower is going to be much harder to defend.
And look at the poke coming out from Mickey right now. He's got his death cap completed. He is a fully fledged wizard, and he is showing his magic to the side of G2 as they struggle to wave clear. Mithy, With him gone, that pick potential that G2 have isn't quite as strong. And ROX's eyes are on the inhibitor. This is exactly the kind of pick that they needed. And they're going to go straight for it.
Yeah, the inhibitor in the top lane is wide open for the taking. ROX are going to try and force the issue. Sven pushing on forward.
Expect.
Stacey's there. It's going to be Stranglethorns, not onto anyone as Expect on the back line. Mickey flashes away with his life. Redemption healing
He's
people,
gone.
but he goes down. The dot's ticked away. Sungwon trying to walk away with his life, but it's Linderang who has to shadow dash away. The slows come down. In goes Expect, follows the flash. The knockups, the CC. Can they chase these kills? They've got to find something more here. Linderang gonna sacrifice himself here so his team can escape.
G2 are able to find a successful fight, 4 versus 5, thanks to a beautiful flank from Expect. This guy has been stepping up this tournament, and he does it once again.
And once again, G2 hold on by the skin of their teeth, keeping that inhib alive, keeping themselves in this series. Elder Dragon is alive.
But you're also now seeing the power of this Ivan in the late game. Kha'Zix is really struggling to have the same sort of impact when there is so much utility. Perks, he can just sit on the front line. He's got shields and heals for days, and now they're setting their eyes on this dragon.
Seongkwan has stolen a Baron in this series. Can he steal the Elder Drake? This would be so huge for ROX if they can deny this objective. Just think, double Infernal, if they get this Drake, but it's not gonna happen. It's gonna be locked down by G2. Elder Dragon in the back pocket. G2 are well and truly back and fighting.
The goal difference means less and less as the game progresses. Big item spikes have been completed. The Elder Dragon now in the hands of G2. But how do they utilize this? This has been such a back and forth game. They've used On the Hunt, they're looking.
Forcing the engagement, he's found. QSS will keep them alive, and Pristivide onto a few.
He's
But
dead!
Mickey goes down. He's traded just for a support kill. Linderang trying to hold them back, but he has to back away. G2 with a great start to this fight. Flash Expect, and it's going to be a double kill coming through. Sven on the front line, and now the Baron.
Baron is on the eyes for G2, but what can ROX do to handle it? They have a big minion wave in the top. Maybe they can find some kind of answer. They still have their jungler available. Can G2 secure this objective?
ROX need a miracle to stop this one happening. Expect teleporting in as well. This should just about secure it. Songwan wants
It's
to
gone!
steal. He's too late though, and he will sacrifice his own life for this one. Actually sneaking away. He's going to use that ultimate to great effect, but it's too little too late. He drops down and will be finished.
Ladies and gentlemen, G2 have secured themselves the Baron, and they are keeping their hopes alive. Everything that G2 needed has now been given to them after forcing this fight. Such good play from G2. They find Mickey out in the open. They try so hard to force it, and they're able to lock down Mickey, the big damage dealer on the side of ROX. With him gone, ROX have such few answers. There's nothing that Songyu can do to stop the front line of Expect. If he gets anywhere near, G2 will just steamroll over the fight, and the only hope they had was for Sungwon to be able to steal away the Baron. But this time, G2 were ready. They didn't want to let that happen, and they secure it. And now it is G2 that are making their way towards the base of the ROX Tigers.
And we're getting to the point where the goal difference, first of all, has dropped to just 4K, but second of all, everyone's hitting 6 items at this stage. It just doesn't matter. And with the objectives in favor of G2, they just have to sweep up these outer towers and get into the base of the ROX Tigers. I can't believe what we're seeing right now. The fact that G2 have got back into this game.
It's one of the few times where, as a color caster, you say they have the late game team fighting, and finally you see it. 10,000 gold deficit G2 were in, but they held the line, they found the windows, and now ROX Tigers, they're struggling, but they still have the opportunities. They still have Mickey on Azir. His poke.
Expect has been caught out. This is bad news for G2. They finish off the tree. Guardian Angel comes into play. Here's the curtain call. Trick has to block these shots. Expect still survives.
Oh,
It's going to be an in-him tower. Going down. Linderang goes down. Key is solo. Sven can't quite finish off the kills though. And they're going for the inhibitor. G2, they take the first inhib of the game. They're not finished. They're going for Nexus towers. This would be ridiculous. G2, they need to be careful. They can't overextend here and they will back away.
Oh my God, Sven playing with the hearts of every European fan right now, going for a 1 versus 2 in the base, knowing that he has the damage to force ROX back, and he's able to just stymie the push from ROX, but you can see that ROX, they are not out of this fight just yet. They are still powerful. They have not been in a gold deficit throughout this entire game. They have so much damage under their belt. They're able to get the GA out from Expect, and they are still feeling very confident. G2 have to show the utmost respect because ROX, they have some bite.
And the Baron buff is going to be running out fairly soon. So G2 need to kind of take a deep breath, stay composed here, because once those buffs are gone, suddenly it's much more of an even fight. Once again, the top lane inhib went down though, so a lot of pressure in that top side, and now G2 rotating towards the bottom half of the map.
The best thing for ROX to do right now is to try and find a pick. They have such good long-range wave clear. They have great ability to just catch that target out of control. Remember, all these zoning tools to split up the side of G2 can give them that opportunity. But it is so difficult when you look at Ivan. The power that he can bring this lane into the game is just monumental. And Perks, he can effectively become the tank for G2 simply because of the amount of utility that he gets from the jungler right now.
Spamming out those trigger seeds. Trick has been unbelievably influential in these team fights. Now the siege begins on this bottom lane inhibitor, and this is the power of Daisy just walking forward, being that massive minion spent, blocking away from the root. That could have been the end of the game if that had landed onto him. But now that Baron is going to be running out, how did G2 keep this pressure up?
Well, with the Baron disappearing soon, they just kind of use the top lane on the hunt, gets popped.
Engage coming in, they just want to force this tower if they can. Flash forward for Key, they want to get the kill. Stand United isn't quick enough. We've got the Kha'Zix in the backline, has to jump away, the tower will be dropped. G2 are looking for a victory right now, looking for the win. Perks on the backline, he's trying to get onto Mickey, who's chunking out the snake. The root is going to be dodged away from. Curtain Call comes through, but they hide behind Trick. They get the inhibitor, can they get away? It's the shot, the snipe! It's going to be a double kill as well. Sangwon trying to get in, but Sven trading it straight on back. The red buff ticking out, but he survives!
G2, they end up losing the fight. Sang-yoon coming up huge in that exchange, but it's not over yet.
Lindaran gets the taunt. Can they finish off a kill? It's going to be Sven turning this one back around onto him. That passive from Azir will deny all engages.
Oh my word, ROX Tigers, you guys sure know how to find ways back into these fights. Yes, you lost your inhibitor, but my God, Sang-yoon, that was fantastic. Finding the pick down onto Perks, being able to weave the bullet through all 5 members to shut him down was the go signal that the ROX Tigers needed to be able to find a fight back in their favor.
The inhib went down though. G2 got a massive objective here. Let's have another look.
But look, the use of the miasma to zone away the other members of ROX, they get the shutdown onto Key. Now the Shen, he has to TP into the fight, and he's able to because the tower doesn't go down fast enough. Perks, he's sitting on the front line, and this is his big mistake because he thinks he can trade against Mickey, and he doesn't entirely respect the damage. Now, keep your eyes on Sang-yoon and his ability to land the final shot onto Perks.
The snipe comes through.
Oh, so narrow. Such a fantastic shot from him. And that is more than enough to allow ROX to just continue the pursuit. And the fact that Sung-hwan is able to get away with that just adds insult to injury for G2. But now they have 2 exposed inhibitors. Baron is going to be respawning in a minute. And it just goes to show how back and forth this game is. It has not been decided yet.
I'm not going to lie, my blood pressure has tripled during the course of this game. This is unbelievably close. G2 holding on to hope that they can make it to the finals, but ROX have been phenomenal in this series. And these fights have been all about who can shut down the mid laner first.
But what we've been seeing is that G2 are always the ones that will come out ahead in the initial fight. It is whether or not G2 choose to overcommit or overextend, because there are so many tools for ROX to just keep the chase going. It is so easy for them to be able to lock down an escaping G2. And if they just stick around for a little bit too long, that pick potential that ROX has is just so influential. So G2, they need to be patient. They need to pick the right opportunities to find those good fights.
Speaking of opportunities, 15 seconds on the Baron. This is going to be unbelievably important.
Look at all the vision in the top side of the map. ROX right now have the push in mid, but that TP flank from Expect is waiting to happen.
This is a game-breaking objective coming up, and both teams are well aware of the situation. ROX, they have the positional advantage right now. They're the ones in control.
They're starting
of
the
the pink
Baron.
purple one. They're starting it off straight away. Teleport
That is fast.
out of expect. They're going to try and just burn this one down. They have a lot of damage, but they might have to back away. And actually expect just goes straight up to the back line. They get the early game. Mickey drops as well. G2 wants to win this one. Linderang on the back line. Sang1 trying to finish off place, but he can't get the kill. G2 win out the fight.
G2 have done everything that they needed to do, and I think they're going to take this
The
final
Super's in
game.
the bot lane. Super's pushing already for them in the bottom lane. G2 are careering towards the base. 40-second dead timers.
Look at the face of Sang-Yoon. ROX Tigers know that they have failed this fight, and G2, they're going to win against the Korean team in an international competition and make their way to the final.
I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. Final fight will come in. Linderang trying to stall at all costs, but he goes down into GA. The Supers are pushing forward. Daisy coming out. Linderang will drop for this one. This is surely the game, just trying to stall it out. G2, 10,000 goal deficit, but they don't care. Europe are in the finals. What did I just witness, Venius? What a game.
One of the biggest comebacks in League of Legends history. 11,000 goal deficit. And G2, they make it work. They make that late game team fighting comp work. It was a tough series for both teams. G2 were pushed to the very edge. I can give nothing but praise to the ROX Tigers because they played so well throughout this whole series, throughout this whole tournament. And I think they exceeded expectations by far.
Absolutely, but any criticism of G2's international performance ends here. Fantastic series from the G2 boys. And they will move on. Our first finalists confirmed. Congratulations, G2. They've managed to make it happen. The analysts didn't believe in them. The Twitter poll was dicey, but they made it through in the end.
It was definitely a close series. G2 had to work hard to get themselves that win. And while it was a long wait, the crowd did not lose energy. There was so much enthusiasm for this whole series. And that was a fantastic game.
Unbelievable stuff here. Let's pass it over to this stage. Let's have an interview with our winners.
Thank you very much. Sven, that was simple, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was no problem.
I mean, after everything that's happened over the past few hours, they called it one of the biggest comebacks ever in League of Legends history. What was it like to play?
I think after like some 2 hours of doing nothing, I gotta admit that I was like a bit fatigued or a bit lost like mentally, but I think towards second game and third game we picked it up, and even in third game I died 2v2. I was really tilted, but the team kept together and we were all saying we can win, we got this, and yeah.
And how sure, I'm just looking at you now, there's a little tremble on you. How sure were you, even when you were just storming down towards next to the end, that you were gonna win that match?
I think at some point when we made the comeback play at Nash and they stole Baron, I was sure we could win this game, but before that, I thought we were behind, but it was not like a single point where I thought we could lose.
Well, there's two things here. First off, an EU team has beaten a Korean team.
That's right.
That's right. And secondly, G2, people have said over the years that, you know, you're great when you're playing in the LCS and then you step up onto the big stage and sometimes it hasn't gone your way. You've just proved those people wrong.
Yeah, that's right. And we're trying really hard to make G2 great again. And hopefully beating two Korean teams, although best of threes and lower tier teams, is for us a step towards redemption. And now we're playing the finals of Katowice and it's really amazing.
Well, we're talking about the finals, we're talking about a World Championship. Just over there is a very large trophy. Who do you think you'll be playing in the finals here?
I'm not sure, honestly. I think both HK and Flash Wolves can win. It's a tight match like this one, but I kind of hope we play against HK in the finals. It could be cool. Play an EU match at Katowice. Also, it's a nice trophy.
It is a very, very nice trophy. You going to be taking that home with you?
Sure hope so.
Thank you very much. Put your hands together for winning. What a fabulous game. He played amazingly himself as well. Sven, and also G2, what a game! Which means we have another semi-final to get to. It's going to be another epic matchup, and we will get to that and go back to the experts desk after a short break.
Where do I start? From a spectator point of view, that was an amazing game. From a European point of view, it was a gift from God almost. It was literally an amazing turnaround for G2. They were, as Vedia said, 11K down against an Azir as well. Guys, let's reel this one back to this. If you can even remember the start and the draft phase, let's reel this one all the way back, because Mickey locks in that Azir. It seems to be well poised to deal with what G2 have brought to the table with that Cassiopeia and Sivir, and they got off to a great start.
I mean, it was a big risk to lock in both Sivir and Cassiopeia effectively blind. They took the Sivir, they really liked the matchup in the lane, but still, Sivir can be punished in team fights for a short range, and then Cassiopeia blind, and you're like, okay, my gears are turning. What could Mickey play? Because he actually hasn't played Azir since July 15th last year in over 40, 50 games. Azir's been largely out of the meta, and hey, at the early game, it didn't. And when they were up 11,000 gold, it looked like a masterstroke because they did some excellent snowballing. They got a lot of leads. They broke the base in the top lane, but they just could never dot the I's and cross the T's. So many fights upon fights did they make mistakes. Zyra dying to Malzahar. The Malzahar pick was honestly carrying them through a lot of the engage in the mid to late game. And it was just a crazy.
It was just such an unbelievable collapse out of ROX. Like G2 held on, and as you mentioned, it was Mythi's, Malzahar, allowing them to get that pick, getting that man advantage, and then just that complete cluster of shields that really made it very difficult for ROX.
Well, let's look at what ROX did well to begin with, and we can show you a replay at the very start where they made this big tier 1 mid lane dive about 16 minutes into the game where they were accelerating that lead. Because ROX, you know, we can talk down on what they've done all we want. They actually started off well.
Exactly, and we got to see the really awesome Azir move in here with the double, well, it's actually after the fact, but got a lot of kills here with the Azir. The play around the Azir was great. Again, everything in the early game was exactly what they needed, but you consider the enemy comp. 2 damage sources, Cassiopeia way behind. They were just not having damages to take out fights. They had shields, they could keep fights going, but they were lacking the damage. But 1 mistake, 2 mistake, ambient gold, standing gold, all the gold came through. Eventually you're gonna get the items, and that's when the game started to change for G2.
Especially the moment that really comes to mind is when Kha'Zix stole that Baron, right?
Yeah.
G2 made a great Baron call going for that, but that was on the back of a ROX horrendous call. They decided to go, you got Baron and Dragon, and they decided to go for Dragon, completely conceding the top side of the map, which is where these issues began.
Well, let's take a look at that Baron steal, because that was, you know, the beginning of where G2 were looking to make moves, and this was still when ROX were kind of in a commanding position.
And look, they get collapsed in a really strong way, and in the end, they lose a fight. They prep for Baron. This was a really smart call in general from G2. It was just a play by ROX in this area. When they were so far behind, they kept winding in. They kept giving over 1,000 gold, 1,000 gold. The gold lead gets smaller and smaller. And sure, their blushes are spared because Shen keeps vision. They put a pink ward over. Between the two, they have vision for the smite. So difficult to do, specifically against the Ivern, who can deny vision to people on the enemy team. But remember, this was against the runner for a very good call by G2, so credit to them for making a proactive call when they were way behind in gold. They made that nice setup. Again, the steal comes in and you're like, okay, I don't know about ROX, you know, struggling a little bit, but they're still gonna close this game. But the game kept going from there.
Yeah, like G2, credits to their resilience, but man, ROX sucked so much in the late game. Like, that was just unbearable to watch. I'm not, like, that was so painful. From an analytical point of view, that was one of the most bad games I've seen out of a team, just completely in disarray, itemization all over the place. Just the Azir looked like he was imitating Perk's Azari from last game, just going in.
Well, let's take a look at the portion of the game where G2 looked like they'd finally found a commanding way to get back into it. It was that second Baron where they had that team fight, and you can actually look at Mickey and see, and it's something that he'd been doing over these team fights. His walls on Azir were not good.
No, the first one under the first turret was good, and in general...
And that was the last one, right?
His laning phase, his skirmishing Azir was fantastic, but his team fighting Azir was awful. Kept going in, thought with Shen ultimate he could be in the back line, walling people back, dying through Shen ultimate. He just overrated his team fight prowess and his ability to initiate on Azir, when honestly, half the time he was initiating, we were both calling for him to disengage.
Exactly. The point of the Azir, when you're running into Cassiopeia and Sivir, you want to pull back. You want them to run to your soldiers. You get that harass. And more importantly, when Sivir pops on the hunt, you kite it out. Wait it out. It's not that long of a duration, so you pull it back and then you remove the initiation tools from the composition.
Every time you're Azir and you look at the death recap, you're taking 1,000 damage from Sivir, you messed up because you should be able to outrange, disengage, not get into melee auto attack, ricochet, auto cancel range, and that was unfortunately what Mickey thought he needed to do. Didn't have Zhonya's, Shen shield wasn't enough. Just all over the place.
And it felt like this was happening over and over again. It almost felt to me, looking at it from a less analytical point of view, it felt like ROX were wanting to pull the trigger when they didn't necessarily need to.
Well, it's exactly what we talked about the previous game. You were mentioning how ROX gets into this mindset where they have to keep playing and they fail to recognize how the circumstances in the game are changing. And that's exactly what happened. They failed to acknowledge how they were losing fights and they kept trying the same formula over and over, giving more advantages over to G2, which gladly took them.
Exactly. Let's give credit to G2. They stuck it out. I mean, if I was 11K gold down, my morale would be floor. But G2 stuck it out, they capitalized on advantages, and they found team fights that got them back.
It's kind of two sides to the coin. They went super late game in their draft, but counterpicked by the Azir, and should never have been in the game. The game should have been killed, it should have been over. But again, credit to the resilience. Over the course of the game, they were able to look at their team comp, understand that late game was a haven for them, held out through it, got little advantage where they could, made decisive calls, and won the game. So on the one hand, you're like, okay, but don't draft just quite so disrespectfully and then find yourself surprised to be 11,000 gold behind. But credit to them for keeping it down. The better team over the course of these 3 games won. It's been a long series. Even just evaluating right now, given that we started, what, 6 hours ago, if you include the delay, is a difficult thing. But they deserve to be going through to the final. And ROX Tigers, so near, but so far.
What a game to end on. And speaking of ending, G2, they found that big game-ending team fight, and it was building up to that point throughout the whole game. I mean, you got to those turnarounds, and G2 found this fight in mid.
And it starts with Azir getting caught, and instead of disengaging, he chooses to go in, thinking that maybe the Shen shield might be enough, but it's just a terrible call, and G2 immediately capitalized with a flash onto the Zyran. From this point onwards, they feel so comfortable, because that was off the back of the Elder Dragon. Yeah. They know they have it in the bag. Secure the Baron, keep clumping up as 5, and ROX will just dismantle and will have no chance of playing that team.
And that kept happening, and they did it. And every single team fight felt like they were getting more and more of an advantage as they were chipping away at that gold lead. And I've got to say, someone who's supposed to be impartial, I'm totally not impartial, I'm from Europe. I'm very glad that G2, for their own morale and their international setting, found their way, back into this. But I've got to give credit to the ROX Tigers. They played and showed us flashes of brilliance. Their early game was good from them, but they just never, like you said, they never adapted, and that was the one thing that they think they struggled with.
But I mean, they go back to Korea, with some confidence, again, with a decent showing, but does it help in a double round robin best of 3 case? Probably not, because we've seen that ROX Tigers a little bit, but even the best of the ROX Tigers this tournament doesn't win every time, and the worst loses every time.
Guys, we've got another semi-final coming up after the break. Believe it or not, we've still got plenty more League of Legends on the field. H2K versus the Flash Wolves. We'll be back and we'll dive into it after our break.
Of a shield. Sanyun wants yet more kills, 52 and 10, as ROX Tigers win game 1 against G2.
A lot with the poke as we see. Oh, Trick in
He's been caught out in the mid lane. He's going to be exhausted. Flashes coming out left, right, and center. Charmlands, it's going to be first blood. Trick is on the board. ROX in control of the area, and Mithy just gets deleted. Repel has to be used by Son Juan, but there's going to be a follow from Expect. They get the kill. Now they've got to find more. Sanyun will get rooted off. There's the Charm, and it's a kill for Per. G2 are going to a 3rd map in this series. Tower might go down here. Daisy pops, Stranglethorn will shove everyone away, but Mickey's going deep, gets 2 knockbacks, and it might just be 2 kills. This Trick tries to escape, but the curtain call goes through. Can't see the Baron, importantly. This is the power of Ivan. Linderang goes in, but he's not that tanky just yet. There's 4 members hitting him. He stole it! The Baron! Sungwon takes it out, flash flashes out of the pit. On in 3,000, does he get another steal?
They got
goes the way of G2, but do they win the fight? Look at the Emperor's device, the damage coming on through, but it's Mickey flashing to the back of the pit. He's gonna be able to go down, and now G2, they've got to finish this fight off. Sangyun flashes out of the pit, might have to back away, and actually expect just goes straight onto the backline. They get the early game, Mickey drops as well. G2 want to win this one. Linderang on the backline, Sang1 trying to finish off plays, but he can't